Okay, on to the next in the running stance series. This is the running spine twist. This is a great exercise because it's very specific to the biomechanics of running. And often people will find that there's a very big asymmetry when they're performing this. And being able to twist the spine and control the spinal movements is imperative if you're going to maintain range of movement, but also the efficiency in your running patterns. I'm a big subscriber to the idea of the spinal engine, which basically comes down to the fact that our spine is a curved rod and has that typical S-bend shape, and it will be twisted one way and generate potential energy and elastic recoil to bring back the other direction. So when you've got one side of your pelvis forwards in that running stance, the top of your body is not rotated the same way as that you're running, and there's this twisting, there's this kind of helical arrangement, and that's part of the spinal engine. So when you've got muscles down one side of the body, down one side of the spine as we've got, and they're contracting unilaterally when you're moving, that contraction of the paraspinal muscles creates a side bending movement, which in turn throws forward the other side, and then the opposite's happening up top. So you've got this wonderful system with the spine where it's both generating forward momentum through that rotational pattern with the double bend in our backs, but also by the time it gets to the end of the rotation, it's generated potential energy and recoil, elastic recoil, and that fires back the other way. So you've got this brilliant system where we're permanently moving forwards courtesy of that spinal engine. Now, if there's any weak link in the chain in terms of the muscles which control or generate or govern range of movement into rotation, you're going to have a bit of a problem. And this is where this exercise, I think, is really helpful, particularly for those of you who identify that there is a big asymmetry. So the basic exercise is based around our running stance. I've got my resistance band tied off to the side here, probably no lower than this, ideally maybe kind of chest height, but you can play around with that a little bit. Whichever side your band is tied onto, you want your front leg furthest away from that. Okay, so the middle, the closest leg to the band is set back. You get into your running stance position, heels anchored, and then we're good to go. Now, for the basic exercise, we want to keep our lower body nice and still. We want to be in a cushioned running stance. And it's worth, before you bring in the resistance, just practicing being able to rotate the upper body independently. So start off with your arms crossed. And this is where you need that awareness of what's going on in the lower body. Keep the lower body beautifully still. Take a breath in, and as you breathe out, turn your rib cage and chest away from your resistance band to the left, if you've got the left foot forwards. And then back to center. So what we're doing here is getting that same pattern. When you're running and you've got that left leg forwards and the right leg's coming, the right arm is coming forwards, your upper body, the upper spine is rotating towards that side, and that's part of that spinal engine which I was talking about just a moment ago. So here we want to foster rotation towards that front leg. Now, a lot of people, even just trying that, will find that as they rotate, the legs change position because the pelvis is getting dragged round, because there's this struggle to dissociate the core stability needed to keep the pelvis facing forwards with the rotation. So what you need to be tuning into here is what your feet, knees and legs are telling you. As you turn around, if you lose control of the legs, you're going to feel that somewhere, whether it's the front knee buckling outwards, whether it's the the back knee buckling inwards rather, or what your feet are telling you from the feedback you're getting from the mat. So here you're just going to the point where you feel that tension, you feel that resistance, and then that's when you know you're in the correct rotation. That's going to come in really important now when it comes into the secondary aspect of this. So you want to get your band looped around one hand and then just interlock your fingers in front of you. Now when you've got the arms slightly out, it's going to test your ability to keep your arms fixed relative to the body. So keep the elbows pinned in to begin with, just touching the rib cage, and keep your hands directly in front of your chest bone. Same thing, take a breath in, and then breathe out to turn your body towards that front leg. You really feel the resistance kick in at this point, and then inhale to come back. Now the difficulty do when you've got resistance involved is your body will try and cheat, and it will kind of slide the left shoulder back behind you, and the hands may skid around. You might end up looking over your shoulder, and you've lost all this pure rotation. So this is why that first level, just with the arms crossed, is super important, because it just gets you used to moving your torso in the correct way. But we want to work into that resistance, keeping this axis of chest and hand and chin, so that everything's rotating through the thoracic spine, while keeping that dissociation from the lower body. Okay, once you've tried one way, you just switch around and perform the exercise the other way around. Now, the further your hands are away from your body, the more lever there will be through the arms. So you can gauge that accordingly. And of course, we've got the actual inherent resistance in the band itself, so depending on what you've got. You don't want to get to a point where you're shaking or you feel any problem in the shoulders whatsoever. So make sure that when you're performing this, is by the time you get to that end point of rotation, you just want to have enough where you feel it's a challenge, you can feel the legs are kind of fighting to stay in position, you can feel that core band working well to dissociate upper and lower body movements, and then you're kind of in the right spot. Now, a really great variation on this is to do the same thing, but with a heel raise on both legs. Okay, now if that's too challenging, just start off with the front leg lifted, and then you can perform your running spine twist with that increased degree of difficulty, or bring both heels up, exhale, twist, inhale back. And this is really going to be a good challenge to prevent those knees buckling, and you get that running specificity of the spinal energy mechanics, which I mentioned earlier. If you want even more difficulty still, then have the front foot on a balance cushion or balance pad, and that instability just notches up the difficulty even further. But the running spine twist is one which I frequently see people have a very big difference from side to side. And if you notice that, it gives you something to really get your teeth into, and it's such a specific problem to try and fix for running, because these are exactly the kind of things which lurk under the surface, you don't know they're there, and then they just gain traction over years and they create other problems. So if you can get your core stability really fired up in this very running specific pattern, you're going to find there are long-term benefits for this, and you can get back to that nice equilibrium which is needed if you're going to be successfully running long distances. So there's the running spine twist. We're going to go into something which I've just touched on there, and that's the split simple raise. So we'll come back to that in just a moment.